Krevshaw Station hangs in the black void like a monument to profitable bad decisions, a neutral ground where the galaxy's restless warriors come to bleed for an audience. Hosting interspecies gladiatorial combat is less about sport and more about managing a logistical nightmare of incompatible biologies. The Velari view weight classes as a moral failing. The Shortcuta consider energy shields a breach of etiquette, and humans, in their infinite unpredictability, think the whole affair is deranged but lucrative. For 60 standard cycles, the medical staff here has reattached severed appendages, patched cracked exoskeletons, and managed one regrettable incident involving stress-induced explosive mitosis. They have protocols for everything. They have 17 distinct stasis fields calibrated for every known physiology in the sector. But as the lights dim and the crowd roars, it becomes clear that none of it has prepared them for the Terran. She enters the arena without fanfare, a mercenary signing in under a generic contractor designator. Standing 5'7", she looks less like a warrior and more like someone who spent the previous night arguing with a bottle of cheap engine coolant. Across the sand stands Vorakish, the Velari champion. He is 8 feet of crystalline muscle and bio-armor, a creature whose name translates to storm that breaks mountains, because the Velari never met a geological feature they couldn't turn into a pretentious metaphor. In the cold calculus of the betting pools, the smart money gives the human 45 seconds. The smart money is wrong, but only by a margin of panic. The fight begins with the inevitability of a landslide. Vorakish moves with a speed that belies his mass, his kinetic amplifiers humming a lethal song. He delivers a sweeping low blow, a strike designed to crack starship bulkheads. It connects with the Terran's ribs, producing a sickening snap that echoes like dry wood in a dead forest. Embedded sensors in the floor scream their findings instantly. 6 fractured ribs, a collapsed left lung, and massive internal hemorrhaging. In the observation booth, Chief Medic Crix stares at the readouts with the horror of a scientist watching physics dismantle itself. Crix, a Thelm evolved on a low-gravity world where a stumble can mean death, states the obvious. She's dead. Cascade organ failure. Why hasn't she dropped? On the blood-slicked sand, the impossible happens. The Terran stumbles, blood painting her chin, her breath rattling like loose gears in a broken machine. But then she straightens. Vorakish freezes, his combat programming stalling against a reality that shouldn't exist. "You should be down," he booms, his translator dripping with confusion. The Terran spits red onto the floor. "Yeah, well, should have, could have, didn't," she advances. The silence in the gallery is heavy, a collective breath held by 19 different species who are witnessing a violation of biological law. When a lung collapses, shock takes the wheel, consciousness fades. One does not walk toward an 8-foot crystal giant with hands raised and a gleam of absolute madness in one's eyes. Crix watches the adrenaline spike on the monitors, levels that should explode a heart, and gasps as the human ducks a blow and drives a fist into Vorakish's solar plexus. It's a desperate, ragged fight now. Her shoulder pops out of its socket, her knee takes a hit that should shatter the cap. Yet she persists, fueled by spite and failing biology. Vorakish hesitates, paralyzed by the cognitive dissonance of fighting a corpse that won't lie down. That hesitation is his end. The Terran slips inside his guard, crushing his trachea with her remaining good hand. As medical drones swarm the arena and Vorakish is placed in stasis, the Terran sits heavily in the sand, prodding her broken ribs. When Crix waddles onto the field, horrified by the readings, the human merely grumbles about the pain. "Probably cracked a rib into the lung," she says, pale and sweating. "Happens." Later, in the pristine silence of the medical bay, the confusion deepens into an existential crisis. 3 physicians, Crix, the 4-armed Kashari Dr. Shendi, and the electromagnetic Shortcuta Dr. Vess, hover around the examination table. They run scans, then run them again, frustrated by the data. The Terran, meanwhile, is arguing with her comms implant about payment terms, demanding her 50,000 credits. Shendi pleads for stillness, their 4 hands fluttering in agitation. "Your physiology is attempting repairs, but the process defies cellular understanding." "Look, Doc, just fix the lung," the human mutters. "Everything else will handle itself." "Handle itself?" Crix repeats, pulling up comparative charts. For a Thelm, bone fractures require weeks of suspension. For a Kashari, such trauma triggers involuntary meditation stasis to prevent permanent damage. Dr. Vess chimes in from the ceiling, their voice a crackle of static, noting that even the Velari lock down when compromised. "Nobody just pushes through," Crix insists. "It causes death. Why are you awake?" "Because the fight's over." The Terran looks genuinely confused. "What am I supposed to do? Lay here moaning? That's not going to make it hurt less." The silence that follows is the sound of a conceptual bridge collapsing. It forces the doctors to dig into restricted diplomatic files, hunting for precedents. They find ghosts in the data. A human merchant fighting pirates with a punctured abdomen. A construction worker directing rescue efforts with a crushed spine. A maintenance tech surviving 53 seconds of hard vacuum exposure, her first conscious act being to check on her partner. These aren't anomalies, they are a pattern. 47 confirmed cases of beings who treat catastrophic trauma as a minor scheduling conflict. It's just how we're built, the Terran says when confronted, shrugging with her good shoulder. Evolution's not gentle. We survived 5 or 6 mass extinctions. The things that didn't survive, well, they died. That's the definition. The implications ripple outward, reaching the station's oldest sector. In a chamber of ancient stone, illuminated by star maps predating faster-than-light travel, the heavyweights of galactic diplomacy gather. Elder Tacy of the Kashari, Ambassador Krellin of the Velari, and the synthetic mech Corps 847 stand before the Book of Cautions. Tacy reads verse 17, "And the enduring ones shall walk through the places of ending, and they shall not fall. They shall breathe the air of death and name it wind." "We thought it was a metaphor for the soul," Tacy whispers. "It was a trauma response profile." Director Cass of the Wayfarers Guild drops the final piece of the puzzle onto the stone table. Survey data from a quarantined world, catalog entry 4782T, Earth. A high-gravity death world with toxic oxygen levels and aggressive, adaptable predators. Previous civilizations on similar worlds went extinct. Humanity didn't. Logical conclusion, Mech Corps 847 processes, is that Earth is a filter, a crucible. Humanity survived because everything weaker was erased. They realize with dawning horror that every human in space is a descendant of the monsters that won the lottery of evolution's cruelty. They decide to confront the Terran to see if she understands what she is. They find her in the recovery room doing stretches. Shendi looks ready to weep at the sight. "Stop that," the doctor commands. "You sustained life-threatening trauma 6 hours ago." "Range of motion, Doc. Can't let it seize up," she replies, wincing. The delegation presses her, demanding to know why humans don't have the safety switches, the stasis, the shock, the shutdowns that protect other species. The Terran pauses, looking at them with the pity one might show a child who doesn't understand why fire burns. She tells them of her grandfather who walked on a broken femur to save himself. Of her sister who did math to stay conscious after falling 3 stories. "We don't have safety mechanisms because our environment didn't allow for them," she explains, her voice matter-of-fact. "If you shut down on Earth, you get eaten or you freeze or you bleed out. We keep going because stopping isn't an option. We break, sure, but we don't break easily and we don't break quietly." The room feels suddenly smaller. Tacy realizes the ancient texts weren't mythology, they were warnings. "You're not exceptional," Tacy says softly. "You are simply what happens when a planet decides not to be merciful." "That's a bleak way to put it," the Terran says, "but sure." As the delegation leaves, unsettled by the realization that they share the universe with beings who view survival as a stubborn refusal to die, the Terran stops them. "Hey, does the payment clear? And let me know if there are other challengers. I could use the work." The station administration quietly updates its protocols. Human opponents must be matched with extreme caution. But the note in the margin, the one that won't make the official logs, says it all. They don't know they're terrifying. In the recovery room, the Terran finishes her stretches, her bones knitting together with a deep, familiar ache. She checks her schedule. Business as usual. Evolution rolled the dice on a hellscape called Earth, and the result is currently looking for its next fight. The dice, as always, are still rolling.